Good morning, Deputy Mayor, Councillors, CEO, Directors, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start by acknowledging the traditional custodianship of this wonderful place that we call home. And in our region, of course, that's represented by the Yuwi people who can trace a continuous lineage back almost 60,000 years. And so together as a council and on behalf of our community, we acknowledge the traditional custodianship and pay our respects to their elders past, present and those emerging. So this council meeting is being streamed live and recorded in accordance with the council's standing orders. And welcome to our online audience. The members of the public attending today, I draw your attention to the top right-hand corner of the screen. By being here, you are consenting to your image and your voice, if you speak, being recorded live and published in accordance with the council's standing orders. And we're required to tell you that you may be subject to legal action if your comments are deemed to be inappropriate or unacceptable, but I'm sure they won't be. So thanks very much. And ladies and gentlemen, and councillors, declare the meeting open. So today, to open our meeting in prayer, we have the Reverend Robin Husband. And Reverend Robin, I think this is your first time to council, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So thank you very much for being here. Would you lead us in prayer?
My very great pleasure. Let us pray. Loving God, we give you thanks for this beautiful region of Mackay, for the city and for all who dwell here. We give you thanks for this council, for each person who works so hard for the well-being of all. We pray that today your will be done in this meeting. You desire community where all live in dignity and share the resources you've given us. Inspire all here with your spirit of wisdom. Plant seeds of your vision in hearts and minds. Let the working with one another be done with humour and humility. Help all here present to have the willingness to be open to each other, to respect each other, to listen to each other, to be honest with each other, to be supportive of each other, so that something of your kingdom can be built here. Remind us, loving God, that the true business of this meeting is not simply the accomplishments of tasks and projects, but the building up of true community. May the community be built here first, so that your spirit may flow from here through to the wider community. Lord, bless this meeting and all present. May your truth be revealed. May your light shine brighter. May the voices of those most silenced be heard loud and clear. We ask all this in the name and the love and the power of God the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thanks, Reverend Husband. All right, so there's nobody absent on council business today. Do we have, apologies, any condolences, councillors? No condolences. Any conflicts of interest to declare in any item on today's agenda? No conflicts of interest. Confirmation of the minutes of the 25th of September, the meeting that's been circulated as part of your agenda. Would somebody like to move that they be adopted? Councillor Jones moves, Councillor May seconds. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. The business arising out of the minutes is included in your agenda at page 5. There's no questions around that. We'll move on. There's no Merrill minutes today. Consideration of committee reports and recommendations at 10.1, the Audit Committee minutes. The Audit Committee met very briefly in the meeting of the Audit Committee for this report to Council was to recommend the adoption of the unaudited draft financial statements to the Mayor and the Chief Executive Officer for signing, and then submission to the Auditor General. Any questions? Councillor Sheedy.
A couple of questions, Your Honour, Your Worship. Just the draft annual financial statements, I'd like to see them distributed to councillors. just making that comment. And the other question is, where is the annual report? At what stage is it at?
As for the draft statements, once they're finalised, they'll be published for public and everybody, including councillors. As far as the annual report goes, that's almost prepared, and we'll see that at the November meeting. So there's a requirement once the numbers are finalised, we then have a prescribed amount of time to include that into the annual report and send that off. Due to the way that the meetings fall, it will just be next month now that we've already wrote to the Director General and Minister for Local Government. That Minister's not sworn in yet, and they'll confirm in the next few days, I imagine, that the November meeting is when the annual report will occur.
Further questions? Okay, so all we're required to do here now is to endorse this particular agenda item and the report of the audit. Somebody like to move? Councillor Bell moves. Seconded by Councillor Sheedy. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. The Mackay Local Disaster Management Group meeting of the 9th of September. So the minutes are there. I guess the overarching feedback on that one was the bushfire season overview, which was quite comprehensive and delivered to the LDMG, and then the forecast of the exercise Shake and Break in 2024, which has been run now and is a very successful exercise involving about over 40 of our stakeholder groups. Any questions? Would somebody like to move? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Payton. Councillor May?
Yeah, I will just add a couple of points, Your Worship. The adoption of the Local Disaster Management Plan is a really important document, and that was agreed to at the disaster management meeting. And of course, the exercise, the request, I suppose, to the agencies for pre-planning in the lead up to the storm season, making sure that the agencies have the capability operationally, business continuity plans and staff wellbeing plans in place, just in case we are hit with a disaster. And of course, there's always a requirement that the committee members keep their training up to date. So I'd just like to highlight that system has now changed over to the QPS training system, and it's up to each individual member to make sure that their training requirements are kept up to date.
Thanks very much, Councillor May. Speaker against? Any other speakers? The speakers, I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.3, Livability and Social Inclusion Strategic Advisory Committee. The draft minutes are up for our adoption today. Are there any questions, first of all? No questions? Who's moving this? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. But another good meeting was had by the Livability and Social Inclusion meeting. We had presentation by Greater Whitsunday Communities Housing Alliance, which just gave us an overview of where they are at with a number of activities that have been undertaken. I suppose the main one to call out there is the workforce accommodation progressing well here in Mackay, as well as starting to make some inroads into the Bowen area as well, and there'll be more to come on that as that evolves. The livability survey was tabled at the meeting. We had discussions around that. We've made some suggestions, and it'll be coming back to our next meeting, and then of course council will get a look at that as well. The North Queensland Sports Star Awards, we sent our nominations from the Mackay region through. Councillor Johnson and myself attended the Sports Star Awards along with the AGM of the North Queensland Sports Foundation last weekend, where we had 2 runners-up were successful from Mackay, which was good to see. The disaster recovery preparation, we're just looking at that and looking at doing a workshop of gathering all of the recovery agencies in preparation for the cyclone season or disaster, arrangements that may come to be, and that will probably roll out in the next month or so. And of course the Mackay Youth Council, that was, we had the swearing in ceremony, but this is really just a follow-up to that to say, look, let's have a think about how council engages with the young mayors and the youth council. the suggestion that's being looked at is that through the livability and social inclusion, we have perhaps a once a month contact with them, and then once a quarter with the whole of council. We just got to bear in mind that we don't want to overwhelm our young councillors with too much pressure. So that's going back to them to see whether they want to agree to that taking place. And then of course the other item on the agenda was the planning for the Olympic Games in 2032, and we've asked for a presentation, a briefing to come back to the next committee meeting.
Thanks, Councillor May. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Johnson speaking for.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to take a moment to thank both Carol and Tonya for coming in and presenting with for Greater Whitsundays Communities, our last strategic advisory committee. They presented on the Greater Whitsunday housing project, and they provided some really great insights on how we should be implementing for our regional approach, and also just the impactful work that they do every day. I just wanted to note that while we are still working on our external attendee committee list, myself and Councillor May are still actively engaging with external stakeholders and community to see if there's any opportunities for support, and I really look forward to the next future committee meetings where we are pushing forward our strategic objectives.
Thanks, Councillor Johnson. Any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? That motion again. Councillor Bella, did you vote? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right. The Arts, Culture and Heritage Strategic Advisory Committee draft minutes are at 10.4 on your agenda. Any questions? Any questions? Who's moving this one? Councillor Payne. Second one, Councillor Corrow. Councillor Payne.
So I'm pleased to share some highlights of our recent meeting. During our meeting, our discussions, we had an opportunity to brainstorm and exchange ideas with the Mackay Art Society. Our focus was creating pathways for meaningful community engagement and strengthening partnerships with key stakeholders and local artists. Together, we tackled some important issues raised and strategised approaches to address them effectively. Another highlight was the focus of the region's historical buildings and heritage sites, particularly from the pioneering years, representing historical points of interest that can add to the allure of Mackay. They not only showcase our rich history, but also serve as a strong foundation and who we have become in our region today. It is also a pertinent point to acknowledge that these sites have the added potential of attracting visitors who want to explore and connect with our heritage. And we believe that with clear vision and thoughtful planning, we can value add to this region's arts, culture and heritage impact and in impactful ways that are both achievable and sustainable. And in closing, I'd just like to take this opportunity to recognise our staff. Their expertise and commitment are invaluable to our ongoing efforts, and I commend and thank them sincerely for their contributions. Along with key improvements that can be identified, I believe that maintaining a high level of advocacy, as we do for our communities, arts, heritage and culture, is paramount.
Thanks very much, Councillor Payton. Speaker against? Any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put that motion in. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Let's moving on now to 11.1 correspondence, and it's my report, the CEO's report. My report is attached. Are there any questions, Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Worship. I just
You don't need to stand for a question.
sorry.
But you're going to be really serious.
Yeah. I just wanted to make mention or just thank you again for your appointment of, or not your appointment, your initiation of the Slade Point meeting. I attended again last night, and the second meeting was again a large number of people there, and our next meeting in 2 weeks' time will be the election of the committee. So I just wanted to thank you for that initiation. The other thing was I also see the follow-up with Jason Flanagan with the reinsurance pool, and it's appreciated. Obviously, the take-home messages, which we've spoke about on many occasions, is about just trying to get it more out there in the community that they need to ask their insurance companies about are they in the reinsurance pool. I'm wanting to ask your worship, whether or not it's possible for us to do something on social media regarding that, because it's something we've advocated for. Can we do that by letting the community know?
Certainly, I'll ask via the CEO if we can in terms of our legal obligations. So,
Yes.
but I don't see any reason why, and even councillors, I don't see any reason why you can't say, particularly now that the reinsurance pool is gathering ahead of steam, it's critical that everybody asks their insurance companies, are they part of the pool? This is for cyclones, of course, but as you can see in that report, it was a very interesting feedback. The most concerning part was the level of uninsurance now in our region. So that's also what we need to actually highlight. Insurances are coming down, the costs aren't there yet, but the pool doesn't set the insurance level. The insurers still set the insurance level, but the pool actually provides an avenue to underwrite cyclonic outcomes, and that's going to be, we'll see that play out. But if you want to get involved, I suggest you certainly do, and we'll talk to the CEO about how we as a council do that.
Thank you.
All right. Are there other questions, Councillor Mackay?
Just speaking on some points, Mayor. Just under key events attended was the LGAQ State Conference, and I just wanted to say how grateful I was to be able to attend that conference. As a new councillor, it was very valuable to be able to attend and listen to so many amazing topics from across the state, and also to network with other councillors and just see how things operate across the state. It was really valuable for me as a new councillor, so I just wanted to make mention. Also, just wanted to acknowledge our Mackay Youth Council as well. So I just wanted to congratulate the councillors and also the mayor that served in the first term. They were the key players to setting up our first youth council in Australia. So I just wanted to acknowledge the work that they did for that. And also just to congratulate those that have been elected now, and what a privilege it was to have our young people sitting here in the chambers and see them sworn in. It was a really great moment, and I'm looking forward to working with those students in this next year. Also, just a mention there for the TEQ and the Carnival Cruise meet and greet visit. So it was really great to have our Tourism Events Queensland and Carnival Cruise visit Mackay to take in our region as a potential to add Mackay to the cruise route for the coast of Queensland. I think that's pretty exciting that they've come to Mackay and acknowledged us. So a really great moment, and also to host the Australian Regional Tourism Conference here in Mackay. That was a really great moment, and I see that that Trish got to speak with you, the CEO for tourism events, and that there is that support for regional tourism, so that's really exciting.
It was good to have the CEO here. She'd never been to the Onyo pub, so
Wow.
so she has now.
It's on the bucket list.
All right, any further questions? Councillor Sheedy?
I'd just like to support and endorse what was just said by Councillor Mackay, and I had the pleasure and the honour of attending the LGAQ conference, and I found that to be enormously helpful in terms of networking and making contact with people with similar and differing ways of handling issues that we deal with here as well. And very, very grateful. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thanks, Councillor Sheedy. It was at 1,100 participants in that conference. It was the biggest LGBTQ conference ever, so you attended the right one. Well done. If there's no further questions on that report, you might notice that I've actually included the road accident group twice, because firstly they came into me, and then for the first time ever, I attended a RAG meeting. And they've got a very, very good project for as I've mentioned there in my report, a very, very good project for a lay down and a rest area for heavy vehicles and also caravans. And hopefully, spoke to the now government about their support, and they're very, very supportive of it as well, so we can watch this space. I'd like to move the report. Would you like to second it? Councillor Bella seconds. I think we're fine. Councillor Bella, do you wish to speak?
Yeah. Just got a couple of words to say about the RAG. These two meetings were actually the first minor success of our Strategic Advisory Infrastructure Committee, where they came to us, got a little bit of advice about how to present, and then came through. the project they're talking about is eminently valuable. We as a council have provided a letter of support in principle. And I note that we speak about supporting them in relation to advocating to state government. But I also think that one of the major users of a number of the major users of a facility such as this are some of the quite massive transport companies. And I really think that they need to have some skin in the game. So when the time comes, there needs to be advocacy to these private enterprises, because they are the ones that would benefit to a certain extent. The other thing is that I want to reinforce that in this whole process, this is not up to the ratepayers of Mackay to fund. This is something that I believe that as I said, the state and indeed those transport companies need to have a serious look at.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bell. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Christensen.
Speaking against your worship.
Speaking against?
No, I'm not speaking.
Oh, right.
Not speaking against.
Okay, right.
No, look, I just wanted to talk on the proposal by RAG, which I'm very glad they've taken to you. I've been aware of that proposal for some time. While council has provided that in-principle letter of support, I just feel it is necessary to advise fully. The reason that they're pushing it is because there is now a $160 million bucket of funding that the federal government's got available for rest stops across Australia. They want a slice of that, $5 million, to develop that rest stop there. And that would just be south of Paget. There is a block of land that's currently available. That block of land would be ideal, but of course it's on the market, and whether it's sold before they are able to finalise this, that is a very big question. The reality though for this council is that that funding can only be applied for by either councils or state governments. So while we're supportive of it, if we're not willing to take it on, there's going to have to be, I guess, some strong arming of the new government to take this on, to actually put up some funds, because Councillor Bella is right. This is something with heavy vehicles. It is a state and federal responsibility. So it's good the federal government's got that money on the table, but we're now going to have to do that extra bit of lobbying work, I guess, for the region mayor, and it's I'm sure that will happen in your capable hands now that you've been fully abreast of that situation by RAG. But I really do hope that they both come to the party, and I think whatever council could be doing to put pressure on to actually get the state government to commit some funds and to apply for this heavy vehicle rest stop area, we should be taking every opportunity we can.
Thanks, Councillor Christensen. I've already spoken to the new Premier about this particular issue, and we have to just get our act together around the auspicing of any finance, and then work it out with the state. But he didn't commit, of course, but they were very, very appreciative of the approach and willing to work with us. All right. Any other speakers? I'm sorry. There's none other speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. The CEO's report. CEO.
Thanks, Mayor, Councillors. The end of this month marks almost 12 months since the Opportunity for Change launched within Council, which was really about embracing innovation and challenging status quo. So one thing we identify when we do that is we're not going to change the world overnight, and it's about understanding where our best priorities lie and what areas we need to change within the organisation. This report picks on a couple of those areas in particular. One is the optimisation of our laboratory team, which really helps streamlining not just accountabilities, but also responsibilities about what's required in those teams and ensuring that we get the right skill in the right places. And the second one relates to our development assessment and planning assessments, which has resulted in significant fee reductions, which was also commended by the UDIA, the Urban Development Institute Australia, to acknowledge the work in Council, and that only happens through streamlining processes and making our work more simpler, which obviously goes and flows through to the end result, which is the applicants and the people that are looking to come and invest into Mackay. So it's a great result from both areas, and certainly the very nature of continuous improvement is that it is continuous, and we're continually looking for ways within the organisation to challenge status quo and make change. And the last point was council's draft corporate plan. Obviously, we're aware of the minor revision has gone to community consultation, and that will be coming back to council for a briefing based on that too. And I'll leave the rest to the chair.
Thanks very much, CEO. Questions? CEO, Councillor Sheedy.
Just the laboratory, Your Worship, what are the typical sort of samples that go through the laboratory?
The
Materials that are sampled. You referred to turnaround times of sample testing, increased customer satisfaction, better community outcomes, etc. But I'm just curious to know what products we're actually analysing in that laboratory.
Like what types of water?
What products are we? Yeah. What are the
Water.
Water.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Well, there's not much else other than water that we do. It's predominantly a water service, and that checks for the chemicals and the balances of the ratios throughout all of our water treatment plants as well.
I guess the new council hasn't been out to go through it, so let's arrange that.
We've got a lot of new things to see, Your Worship, as you'd appreciate. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Johnson.
My question was just around on page 48, the after agent survey questions. Are they selected through a third party, or do we select those themes ourselves?
I'm not 100% sure on that one, Chris.
I'd have to follow up that as well. I'm not 100% sure of that. I know that it's referred following a call and it's all captured within our systems. But as for who defines the questions, I have to follow up with the Chief Customer Experience Officer.
Well, I think they do come from, I get the official answer, but I know what was practice, and this was a year ago, so I'm unsure if it's still the same, but we'd look at the top trending requests and then we'd base questions on that to gauge whether things have improved. So if 9 months ago there was a trend in bin replacements or whatever, that would later feature as a question to try and gauge whether improvement's been made over time. I'm sure we did select the questions, but I'll get the actual ones and come back.
Further questions, Councillor Christensen?
Thanks, Your Worship. Just referred to the note in the report about the 68,000 odd borrowings from our libraries. I've just got some questions regarding books in our libraries, particularly the Hoopla ebook collection that is available through our libraries, prefacing with the fact that ebook collection is Hoopla's, but we make it available through to our library customers through the library website. It came to our attention that there was a book titled No Better Words that was classified as restricted publication sometime in September, but it possibly remained accessible on the Hoopla platform and through our libraries until mid to late October. Is that correct, Your Worship, through you to the CEO?
So what happened in this particular case was, whilst there was an application lodged to assess that book, we are aware that an applicant received an email from the E-Safety Commissioner advising of its categorisation. We then subsequently got in touch with the Australian Classification Board, who advised us in writing that it was not classified and no action was required. One of the issues with the ACB specifically is when they publish the information on their website, they may publish it from the date it was received, not the date it was assessed. So when you look at the website, it says September, you would gather a view that it's been in that way since September, but we have an email as late as mid-October from the CEO of that board saying there is no action required from us. It just so happened that after we'd corresponded that to an external resident, within that time frame, the publication had been released and classified, and therefore, in accordance with the previously adopted council resolution, any book or item that is banned or prohibited by the ACB, we took immediate action and removed that from the Hoopla service.
So one further question on that external resident, Bernard Gaynor, who I know that councillors have received emails from, but also there's been emails from other members of the community, and one of the issues that Mr. Gaynor has raised, I just want to quote him because I just need to get some clarification about this. It is, I need to clarify what's being said, Your Worship. He said that Mackay Regional Council has agreed to remove every pornographic ebook from its catalogue. The content was issued by the ebook streaming service Hoopla. He then goes on to basically say what the CEO just said regarding the No Better Words ebook being removed. but he ends with all ebooks were taken from the catalogue this week. I'm just wanting to check whether that claim is accurate and if every ebook that we've been contacted by in terms of Mr. Gaynor and others that have raised these issues with us, if they've been removed from Hoopla at our request, or
It's my understanding we have only removed titles that have been classified, so we have not removed any other title from Hoopla, which is their platform. But I might allow Director Community to elaborate on that.
Through you, Mayor. So there's difference that there's a Hoopla and then we've got our catalogue. Hoopla puts a variety of things in our catalogue, but we don't. The only one that's been removed is No Better Words. The other ones may not be in our catalogue, but if you're a council member, you can still log on to Hoopla and download those books or hide those books.
so just note that those books are not on Hoopla anymore, so I don't know what reason, but
Then that would be a matter for Hoopla. Council has not, as per the resolution, directed the removal of any book that is not classified.
Right, Councillor Johnson.
My question was just around page 41 and 42, the active vacancies. So there's list there, there's 153 total active vacancies, and then the next page is listing an actual 188 vacant positions. So I just wanted to clarify between those two different figures. Is that the amount of the extended period of time vacancies, or?
I would imagine so.
Sorry, just to clarify through you, Mr. Mayor, what did you mean by extended period of time?
Are they the positions that have been vacant for an extended period of time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 180 is that total, and there's a variety of business reasons for that.
Yeah.
And then 153 is, as you identified, the active vacancies.
Is there a definition for extended period of time that we use, or?
Not a documented one that I'm aware of, but like I say, a lot of these decisions are in response to local sort of business circumstances within the various directorates and business units.
Councillor May.
It's a good segue into my question regarding the staff vacancies and the pressure that puts on our operational budget. I'm just asking, is there any point in time in the preparation of next year's budget that we actually look at these positions and determine whether they are still required or not? Because we are funding through the budget process these vacancies as such, and we know how tight operations are. That I just asked if that's part of our preparation for the budget.
Yeah, certainly within the programs, when officers work out how many FTEs might be required, that's still factually correct, and the issue we'd have is if we start acknowledging we're just not going to have 20 positions, that needs to come from materials and services somehow to get the service work done. So we always go in with optimism that we'll fill more positions than the 7% vacancy rate. So it is a constant challenge, and as we've seen in the strategic financial reports, we often then see that swing from employee cost to material services to get the work done. But it is something that staff are very mindful of, in particular with that spirit of just wanting to get the job done and fatigue and burnout that might cause as well. So it is a consideration.
Any further questions? No further questions? So we'd like to move the CEO's report be adopted. Councillor Bella, seconded by Councillor Payton. Councillor Bella.
There's just a couple of things I'd like to highlight. The mention of the laboratory optimisation.
Sorry, Councillor.
I was actually, it was during the first term when we actually inspected the old laboratories, and to be perfectly blunt, I was aghast at the conditions that staff were working in. Having done my time in labs early in my career, and my daughter, who until just a while ago was actually lab tech, I saw things for what they were. The move to the new facility was tremendous. And I cannot remember, but there's some massive amount of tests carried out by our staff every week. One of the problems is, of course, in moving into a new facility, you often take old habits, and this optimisation is something that I believe was probably a little behind time. Glad it's done though. Quite have spilt milk. Health and Reg, a couple of things that are very pleasing to me is the decrease in illegal dumping. It's a cancer that we have, and especially for private landholders that find that people are dumping on their land. It's soul destroying. A lot of those farms in particular, take a lot of pride in their country, and dumped in bushland, you get release of plant pests. A lot of garden plants are pests when they're in the native environment. And treatment, I think a lot of people don't appreciate how much work goes into treating for mosquitoes. Should we have an outbreak of diseases mosquitoes carry, they will become very, very much aware. I had the opportunity to travel, and this goes on to the recruitment side of things, to travel with one of our supervisors, and I will be travelling with others, in speaking to road supervisors, to some of our staff regarding recruitment. It's interesting, almost impossible to get grader drivers of the standard we need. And just to cover off on what the CEO was talking about, paying a grader driver would cost us X amount of dollars. To try and hire someone to come in and do it is impossible, because people don't want to hire their driver, they need their machine to work as well. So what ends up happening is we need to wet hire the machine and the driver to do the job, which is a cost that is double, if not slightly more, than what employing a grader driver would be. And that's just one example of how our employment costs get shifted across to materials and services. So, in this environment, in this economic situation we have, where it's very difficult to get workers, and especially once we get them to train them to a certain standard, I can't see this changing a whole lot, and it's just something that we're going to have to accept for quite a while.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Jones speaking for.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to, say a worthy note around the visitation of Mackay Regional Botanic Gardens and BB Print. The visitation is up. 80% of the customer requests around council were responded to on time. 80% of our ratepayers are also saying that our local parks in general are now being seen as satisfactory appearance. And this is an increased effort of our staff, of course, and more machinery assisting us in that. And I just want to say well done to the CEO and staff for a great job today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jones. Any other speakers? Councillor Mackay speaking for.
Thanks, Mayor. Just highlighting a couple of things in the report. One is through our Invest Mackay events and conference attraction program, the 7th annual Rumble to Reef skateboarding event at the Sugar Bowl Skate Park was held. And that had more than 1,000 participants attending, and we also had in attendance the 2024 Paris Olympian Hayley Powell, and she was involved with community activations and demonstrations at that event. So I want to shout out to the team that was involved in helping with all of that. And it was wonderful to see that the community has got behind a second year of the Discover Mackay Treasure Trail, a huge success with about 300 teams or families registering for the trail, and more than 1,000 location entry forms were submitted. And the purpose of this campaign was to encourage people to get to know our region and get out there and explore. And there was a lot of positive comments from the community. Just in the economic snapshot, it's great to see that over the last 6 months, the figures have more than doubled with visitations to our Discover Mackay website. And I encourage the community and visitors or investors or anyone looking at Mackay to visit this site if you haven't seen it. It's got a lot of great information that's been provided. In the CEO's report, there's a 2025 to 2028 disaster management plan. And I'd like to note the community education section on page 109. And there's a great website that's put out by our Queensland Government, which is Get Ready Queensland. And this gives great information on how residents can understand the risks and impacts to their community and how to be prepared for when an event occurs. And lastly, I just want to acknowledge the staff in our call centre. Having sat with them on a morning and observing the incoming inquiries, they do an incredible job. And so it's just great to see in the CEO's report that there's continued improvements to give our staff across many areas like our customer experience program, our libraries, the MEC box office, our billing services and our development support with the introduction of the cloud contact centre, and that's gone live in September. And this has given our staff more flexible ways to send information and communicate with our community to ensure that we have faster responses and more personalised service for our community.
Thanks very much, Councillor Mackay. Any other speakers? I'll put that motion then. Those in favour? Any against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.2 in organisation, capability and risk. 11.2.1 is the Mackay Local Disaster Management Plan. You might have seen in the agendas for the minutes, for the Local Disaster Management Group meeting. The management group meeting adopted the new version of the Local Disaster Management Plan. It incorporated some of the legislative amendments that have been made over the last 12 months and made a lot of changes in terms of the roles and responsibilities that have also changed within the stakeholder groups in the region. And it was accepted by the LDMG on the 9th of September. Our job here today is to endorse it as it comes to the council, as a council type plan, and we need to endorse it. Are there any questions? Councillor Christensen?
Yeah, just on page 73 of the plan, it talks about the local disaster coordinator being a director who's we currently don't have. So I'm wondering who fills that role, given that it specifically refers to the director of infrastructure.
We had an assistant, and that's the director of organisational capability and risk.
Who will fill that role?
Is filling the role and did the role in the disaster exercise we just had. So we are covered. Councillor.
No, I don't. I got it the wrong one.
Further questions? No further questions? Somebody like to move the adoption then? Councillor May moves. Seconded by Councillor Jones. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. As you've outlined, there's a very comprehensive plan of, how we deal with disaster situations. So just some of the key highlights in the plan is around the risk assessment, the disaster risk assessment. And then we look at what we can do as a region to prevent disasters. We move then into preparedness if there is something coming up along the way. And then, of course, there is always that critical component of response, and that is, a very important component of the plan. And then once the response is formulated and started to be implemented, we then look to our recovery phase of implementing the plan. So I want to just call out great work of the officers that have really pulled the plan together, made sure that we're compliant with all the legislation changes as you've mentioned. And the other thing I wanted to pull out of this is to encourage everybody to sign up to the emergency dashboard on the council's website, and not just sign up, but turn on the notifications, because then you are notified immediately. New information goes on that dashboard if there is an event coming or there is some sort of disaster, response required. So I encourage everybody to do that.
Thanks, Councillor May. Speaker against. Any other speakers? Councillor Bella speaking for.
Look, I don't even know if this is the correct time, but it is something that needs to be said. So in the last couple of weeks, I attended 2 deliberately lit fires, the first being at Paget, which was lit 1 year after a previous fire had been lit in exactly the same place. The second one was the week later down my way, started in our region and goes into Isaacs. 3 days difference, but 1 year to the fire that burnt 15 to 20,000 acres of our country out, deliberately lit. And this fire actually burnt a 160 horsepower tractor that was 12 months old. Could have burnt the operator at the time. What is alarming to me is I believe there is a lack of drive by those that attended to report this to the police, and I've yet to see or hear of any investigation of these incidents. Someone will be killed, and it's all very well for us to talk about preparing, but sooner or later we're going to catch the culprits. It cannot keep going on year after year. The one in Paget, and I know fires, would have been lit 2 to 3 minutes before I got there. There were no car tracks, so someone had to be on foot, and if they walked there, they'd have been seen. If they parked there, they'd have been seen. So these are things that must stop. If that fire had have jumped the railway line, which I've seen fires do, all of that area, Dundoodle School, all through there would have been burnt. Don't know if it would stop there. So we as a council need to really push hard with both QFIS and the police to actually start taking an active approach to this.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. I appreciate your sentiment. A little bit out of whack for this particular motion, but we've taken it on board. And in terms of the notifications, that's probably something we can bring to the next LDMG meeting about notifying, as we're into the bushfire season, about notifications and response. So I'll make that a point. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. All right. The 11.2.2, is that where we're up to? Okay, operational plan, the quarterly report for the first quarter. CEO.
Thanks, Mayor. Councillors. Briefly, at the close of the first quarter, we got 41 operational KPIs reported as progressing, 21 of those on target, 11 above target, and 3 have no action required, with the remaining 6 ongoing. And I'll leave the rest for the chair.
Thanks, CEO. Questions? Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Worship. I have 2. Page 148, Council has developed a service delivery performance dashboard for the ELT to keep across real-time data. I'm wanting to know, when will the community see some of this real-time data coming through on our website, or is that not proposed?
So always as part of, again, the opportunity for change, about embracing information and being transparent with what we do. We're very much in the early stages of understanding from an executive level what we need internally within the organisation. So we're looking at key drivers such as budget impact to customer outcome. So we're still refining a lot of that data. A lot of that data does not exist in so much that we've got a big bag of metrics, but not necessarily the right ones that we need. So we've got to make significant changes in some of our systems and processes in order to get that to flow upwards. So that then the idea is, from an ELT point of view, we'll be able to look at by service line, exactly what I'm talking to councillors about currently when we talk about service delivery and how we'll enact a particular service. We're very much in the building blocks of getting all this data. It will be a continuously improved project, but the end goal is to, and grass is a great example, it's probably more progressed than other service deliveries. We really want to get an interactive piece on our website that customers and community can log on and see what's next when, and we want to get that approach gradually for all our service lines. It's just a huge body of work that takes a significant amount of time. So.
Just in addition to that question, can you tell me whether or not that huge body of work and getting something online for the community to see will happen in this financial year, or will it be in the following financial year?
I'd say that with grass as a service delivery will be this financial year.
Yep.
The rest takes significant resources to do. So we're prioritising them at ELT at the moment to see where do we want all our effort focused. So we've got the right data at the right point, and that we'll see a lot of that when we have conversations as a council. In budget preparations, you'll see particular service lines might not have as much information as others, and that might be because of a new process or a new way to capture information so that we're better informed about what it is we're doing.
Okay. My second question, Your Worship, on page 151, op 02, it shows a 50% target. Now, I'm just curious about the accuracy of that data, because the notes say that it's about, the procurement of a consultant. So if it was we haven't actually even procured that person yet, I would have thought that it would have said 25%, but it says 50, and that to me is halfway along the project. So I'm just curious about that, that's all.
I think that particular metric goes as far only as the strategy is presented to council. So as soon as it's given to council, it's complete. So if the scope and all the work is done before engaging a consultant, I'd say that's probably a fair estimation. If all the work's already done, we've simply now just got to go out to market, get a response, and then present.
Okay. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Christensen.
Just in relation to actions ongoing, so it's highlighting a number of areas where we haven't hit the mark for the quarter. Does the CEO have any concerns ongoing that some of these areas may continue to flounder in further quarters, particularly regarding the maintenance and delivery of capital infrastructure?
I wouldn't say concerns at this point, councillor. What I'd be more leaning towards is the phasing correct? So we know typically that in a first quarter, we're getting off the ground, we're getting stuff ready to then go to market, and we need to be more realistic with some of those. So you know the progress for the first quarter in capital could be very low because everything's being prepared, whereas you'd then expect to see a bulk in quarters 2 and 3. So my concern probably more relays around how we report rather than what's actually happening.
Very good. Thank you. Councillor Sheedy.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just on page 146, there's a paragraph there under community and environment about in August, Council adopted the Mackay's Creek flood study baseline flood stormwater assessment report. And down a little further, it says development's very active across the catchment. Development potential within the Mackay Region Planning Scheme remains high, and then currently less than 1/4 of the catchment is covered by a flood study that is represented in the flood and coastal hazard overlay planning scheme. Just seems to me to be a bit of ambiguity about what we're talking about there. So could the CEO please explain, do you know which, when we're talking about less than 1/4 of the catchment, is it the Mackay Creek catchment or a bigger catchment area?
Yeah, thank you, Worship.
Director.
What that refers to is the fact that currently, under the current flood and coastal hazard overlay in the planning scheme, there are a number of existing flood studies that don't cover the whole catchment, they only cover 1/4 of the catchment, so that's all we currently have in place. So doing this flood study actually provides data for the whole catchment, and that was one of the reasons for going down this path and doing that flood study. So there's a discussion about the flood study that's just been done, the Mackay's Creek one, and then there's a discussion about the current situation or the situation prior to doing that flood study, whereby only 1/4 of the catchment was covered in accordance with the overlay.
So are you saying that we've now, through you, Your Worship, are you saying that we're now sort of filling the gaps and that it's all covered now, that whole Mackay?
Yes, thank you, Worship, that's a fair statement, that's correct.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. I just have a question, and I don't know, apologies if it was answered during Councillor Christensen's question, but Operation 1227, I just noticed that for the 90% delivery of capital infrastructure against budget, it's currently at 0, but I'm still not sure how it's being measured each quarter. Is that, we have progressed with the capital works, but it's still saying 0. So if we don't meet the target, it's just a 0?
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about in the phasing. So like how might we better report that? So I think what we use internally versus what's being displayed here might be slightly different, because we're obviously hearing and seeing the expense and the stuff happening, but it doesn't correlate to this. And I think that's because it's got a broader annual target only, as opposed to a Q1 through to 4 target that would make it a little bit easier to read. So I'll look into making some changes for the next quarter.
You have another question, Councillor Sheedy?
I do, thanks, Your Worship. And I turn to page 149, and we've highlighted before the new laboratory, and I note Councillor Bella's comments, but I'd just like to say that as a new councillor, and I'm sure other new councillors will have a similar view, that we'd like to actually have the opportunity to see these.
So before we'll make sure that happens. So.
Thanks, Your Worship. And can I also add the water treatment, not the water treatment, the sewage treatment at Mackay's Creek.
We're going to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? No further questions? Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Farrell. Councillor Jones.
I have nothing further to say.
Okay, I think we've been through it. Any speakers? You're speaking for? Okay, Councillor Mackay speaking for.
Just wanted to mention one of the highlights on page 144 of the report, just invest in work. Had the privilege to attend the stage 2 opening of the Resource Centre of Excellence. What this is going to bring for Mackay is amazing actually, because it's a new opportunity for a new resource for Mackay with critical minerals. So yeah, just excited to see that happening, and yeah, look forward to seeing where that takes Mackay.
Thanks very much, Councillor Mackay. Any other speakers? No other speakers will put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.3 now in community services, 11.4 in the planning, growth and sustainability, 4.1 is a material change of use for a community care centre at 2 Endeavour Street, Mackay. We do have a speaker to this, Mr. Cronin, Scott Cronin. Mr. Cronin, the rules of engagement are you have 3 minutes. This is not an interactive session. You can present to council. We'll listen to you and make our deliberations from there. So 3 minutes, over to you.
No worries. Apologies for my get-up. I'm a working man and I'm supposed to be at work. There's a proposed development going down at the corner of Endeavour Street. First up, I comprehend that times are tough. Everybody's looking for somewhere to live. Things are doing it tough. Unfortunately, a lot of the people that are down around the area aren't those people. We've seen since the Chances Op Shop and the community centre have moved there sort of 2.5 years ago, that the number of homeless people that have gravitated to the area has gone through the roof. There used to always be 3 or 4 living on the river down in Sandfly Creek. That's now gone out to 30 and 40. We've all seen, I've sent a letter of objection that you hope you got, the amount of break and enters, damage to buildings, like once a fortnight I have to stitch up the back fence because it's been cut open. Mostly because they finish down at the centre around 2 o'clock, centre shuts up, and then all homeless people then come back down to Sandfly Creek and down to the river around the boat ramp area and then have to get some money. So they go and start hitting local businesses. Things like used needles, feces, trash, Coles trolleys. You know, sometimes there's 30 and 40 Coles trolleys spread out everywhere, all over the street. 2 weeks ago, they had a domestic problem, so then they set fire to each other's campsite. So the police turn up, the fireys turn up. It's not a every now and then thing. In the last 2 years, it's just continually gotten worse. And like I said, skin in the game, like Councillor Bella said. At the end of the day, the people who are they're trying to do the right thing down at the community centre, and I applaud what they're trying to do. There's no facilities for the people after they close. They just all come back down, start hanging around and start trashing the joint. So the drug problem down there, you know, in the last 6 months I've had to escort customers out of my shop because there's been people under the influence of drugs who are walking up and down the street. And they're not coming from out of town, they're the same people we see go past every day. And then they'll come past and they'll be having an argument because they're all high. And then we have to protect our customers and our staff. So I've sent forward an objection letter with 30 odd businesses that have all signed on to it, because until there's some form of real accommodation, there's something more to than just feeding the homeless people and giving them some care, then going home, and then we then have the skin in the game for the rest of the day and the rest of the night. They come down and, you know, like I said, the break and enters businesses that have been there for 30 years are now having to put up fences and put bars on windows that we've never had to do. And it's only been the last 2 years. So we've all agreed that in principle we think it's a good thing. We think trying to help the people who want to be helped is an important thing. By continuing to allow the community centre to be there, we feel will only encourage more homeless people to turn up, and then there's more problems, there's more drugs, there's more booze, and it just then continues to compound itself, and then we fit the bill. The other last point is it's also a priority development area down around the boat ramp, around Sandfly Creek. The council's trying to build it up. So when people now, we have regular runners who used to run from the gym who will no longer run along that stretch down near the boat ramp. Young fellow got attacked, woman got bashed. I need to say
Thanks, Mr. Cronin. It's over 3 minutes now, but thanks very much. Okay, are there questions on 11.4.1, the MCU? Councillor Christensen.
So, given the concerns by objectors around crime, my question through you to the CEO and your Director of Planning is, legally, what can council consider relating to crime as an objection to this development? Director.
Yes, thank you, Worship. In the assessment of the report, you will see an analysis of the submissions that were received, and it's view of officers that this is certainly an issue, but a separate issue to this application. So in terms of assessing the merits of this application against the priority development area development scheme, that assessment has shown that this application or this proposal should be approved and is recommended for approval. The issue of crime in that particular location is a separate issue to assessing this application against the development scheme.
Just want to ask further, just to be a bit more specific, Your Worship. The question that I'm looking to be answered is, if this council was of the mind to reject an application on the basis that it could cause criminal activity, what would be the legal issues surrounding that?
Well,
Yeah.
as you know, if we were to reject an officer's recommendation around a planning issue, we have to have a solid reason. I guess that's where you're going.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. The appeal provisions that relate to priority development area applications are different. However, in this case, for all the reasons outlined, there is sufficient justification. Officers are recommending its approval. So I have to admit, I am not completely up to speed with the entire process that could be gone through, and I do know though that submitters don't have appeal rights in terms of priority development area applications and the decision that's made on them. So I'm just having a look. Yes, so there is the ability to make an appeal under the Economic Development Act, but that's only by the applicant, not by the submitter, not by any submitters.
I don't know that the number of the questions have been completed.
There's no legal
yes.
Ground for us to make a decision on a legal basis if there's criminality in the area.
That's the answer.
Yeah. That's not a planning decision. No other questions? No other questions? Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Jones moves, Councillor Bella seconds, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. Look, I am extremely supportive of this motion before us. The Community Care Centre does support people that are at risk or already homeless in our region. You know, it's been a problem that we've had in our region for quite a lot of years, and yes, it's growing. We've just got our new government, and housing is a state issue, not a council issue. So I'm supportive of the MCU that we have before us, and I'm hoping for great things with the state. You know, moving forward, that we can start to address some of these issues around homelessness. So thank you, Worship.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Speaker against? Are there any other speakers? Councillor Bella speaking for.
I read the submissions against, and while I understand quite clearly what people are saying, ultimately for me, with the increase in people down there, if they have come from somewhere else, you would see a corresponding decrease in crime levels elsewhere, which we have not seen. The accommodation of those people is entirely separate to a policing issue. I've spoken previously about the police actually taking responsibility for policing. If there is a crime issue, that is up to the police, it's not up to us as a council. And I'm quite willing, with your help, to appeal to the police to do that. But ultimately, if you've got people that are being fed a couple of times a day, and even if they do go out and do something that's socially unacceptable, if you all of a sudden stop feeding them, to me, the repercussions of that are a no-brainer. You will get what you were trying to get away from. But ultimately, I've used a word a number of times that is the crux of the whole issue. And what we've got to realise is that as homelessness has occurred, there's been a push down through the whole level of society, and people at the bottom end get pushed out. So to say, you know, that these people can take up and go somewhere else is incorrect. But let's get to that word. The word's people. They are people. And we have a responsibility to do what we can. And I would like to congratulate Australian Street Aid on what they do. So quite simply, I strongly support this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bella. Are there any other speakers? Councillor May speaking for.
Yep. Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just want to make a couple of points around the actual project and draw people's attention. This is not an accommodation centre. This is a community care centre where the provision of meals, a place to rest, a place to charge your phone, a place to get some support services around these people, that's what's being offered up here. I do take note of the submissions that we received, and I think the officers have done a really good job in explaining how those questions of concern have been mitigated. So I think for us to be going against the planning officer's recommendation here, we would have no grounds to do that. And I think the problem of homelessness is huge, and we know that not just in our town but across the state. The people, whether this centre is there or not, will still be there. They're not going anywhere. They're not going away. All this application is doing is providing a place where they can get some care and services and put a meal in their belly, and hopefully we can work with the police on the crime matter and approve this development today.
Thanks very much, Councillor May. And any other speakers? We have been working with the police councillors in terms of the crime and the criminality that's resulting from having a congregation of people in this particular area in our town. Councillor Bella is right, it hasn't gone down anywhere else. What we've seen though is a growth for the very right reasons of trying to add a little bit of humanity. The police have had a very difficult task. Their move-on powers and their apprehension powers are not sufficient enough at this stage to actually deliver the outcome that we want for those areas down there. We suspect now that there will be a refocus with the government, particularly around the petty crime that's been talked about so often, and crimes related to drug and alcohol abuse. So we're very, very keen now to continue that discussion at a higher level, and hopefully the police will have some extra powers. So if there's no further debate, I'll put that motion then. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. All right. 11.4.2, material change of use for a battery energy storage system and an undefined use on the DA number 47 for 2024. Now, we do have some speakers, or at least one speaker to this. Rosemary Nilsson. Right. So Rosemary, welcome to Council. I believe you're new to the motion.
I am, Mr.
Thank you very much. So the rules of engagement, you heard me outlined before. You've got 3 minutes. It's not an interactive session. We'll listen to you and we'll take that on board when we make our debate on this. It's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, councillors. My name is Rosemary Nilsson. I'm Company Secretary and Legal Counsel of Mackay Sugar Limited. We did lodge an objection, which I'm sure you're aware of, in relation to this development application. We made that on a number of grounds. Firstly, because it's taking prime cane growing land, good agricultural quality land, out of cane production for up to 50 years. And we believe that it's imperative for the future of Mackay and the industry that good agricultural land is retained for its productive capacity. We acknowledge that the application is for an area of 5 hectares of land of a much larger farm. However, given its location on the farm, we have concerns that a greater area of cane may also be removed from production, as it may not be viable for the farmer or farmers in the future to plant cane in that smaller area surrounding the storage system. We raised in our objection the potential of some environmental concerns. Given the soil type, we're concerned about the feasibility of that land being able to be put back to sustainable cropping in the future. Our other concerns are related to potential risks of leaching or contamination of soil or groundwater. We also have some concerns in relation to the traffic, rail and public safety aspects, particularly at that intersection of Mackay-Youngler Road and Plaistow School Road. The utilisation of this intersection by additional heavy vehicles during construction raise a concern for us. There's various interfaces at that intersection and the potential for impact on the safety of road users and our rail operations at that intersection as well. We also noted concerns in relation to the infrastructure of Plaistow School Road itself, being a single lane road for the most part. There's a small bridge, other culverts that need to be transversed, impact on local traffic and our cane haulage operations of our growers in that area. We outlined in our objection that we have industrially zoned land available at Plaistow that already has an Ergon Energy substation on it that could be considered for the purpose of a battery energy storage system, and a further alternative site at our racecourse mill where we already have our cogeneration plant. Both sites would not take good quality agricultural land out of production. I guess to finalise our submission, we don't propose, Mackay Sugar does not oppose the general development of energy projects such as this. And I note our investment in cogeneration plants and the use of the gas as a byproduct of cane to fuel that plant as an example. We do request that consideration is given to protect good quality agricultural land for non-agricultural uses, non-agricultural uses. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Ms. Wilson. Well done. Okay, so councillors, I do note that Councillor Christensen has forwarded an alternative motion. It's a big one, printed out on A3. But for a council to make a decision on an MCU, which is a decision in the planning environment, we have to reject, if we are entitled to reject it, we have to reject it for a reason. But first of all, we have to debate the officer's recommendation. Can't just move straight to an alternative motion. We have to have a debate on this motion first of all, and then put up our reasons against if we are to knock it down. So we need to, if what you want to do is entirely up to you, but I need to get this on the agenda first of all, because we can't just let it lapse, okay? We need to get this on the agenda and debated and decided, and then if you're so inclined, we'll move to a alternative motion. Somebody like to move? Councillor?
Can I just ask a question?
Yes, you can ask a question.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Just in reading the report, it identifies the site as 5 hectares, and it says that's 11% of the actual area. Is it 11% of the 5 hectares, or the 5 hectares is the 11%?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Yeah, the 5 hectares is the 11% of the, I think it's a 44 hectare property.
Right, thank you.
All right, so you got a question, Councillor Johnson? Yes.
Yeah, I do. On page 179, it notes that the applicant conducted community engagement outside of the assessment framework. I was just curious if council had any discussions why it wasn't provided, because it just said that the detail wasn't given to council. Was there any conversation?
About the community consultation.
And community engagement outside of the assessment framework?
Yes, thank you, Worship. It's not uncommon for an impact assessment application for us to suggest to the applicant that they engage with their neighbours or they have some level of engagement with the surrounding community. That is a matter for them. It's not something we're involved in. So we often, they don't come back to us.
The question though, Director, was if it has been done, it's not included in here.
And that's because they didn't come back to us with the details, nor are they required to. Yeah.
Very good. Any further questions? Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor May. Councillor Jones.
Your Worship, I actually want to speak against this motion.
Well, you can't, you just moved it.
I know, but I put it on the table for purpose of debate, so you asked for debate.
So you've moved it.
Right.
And you can't speak against it if you've moved it, but I'm happy to have it on the table for debate.
Right.
Okay.
I thought that you could do that.
So you, no, you can't, won't let you do that.
Come on.
You've got it on the table for debate, and that's fine.
Right, okay.
And you can sum up later if you want.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there a speaker against? Yes. Councillor Christensen speaking against.
Well,
oh,
yes, I'll
you want to speak for?
I'm the seconder of the motion.
Okay, you can speak for it, first of all.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. This is very new to our council. We've had briefings in relation to this matter. There is nowhere in the planning scheme that this can go, to say the least, because it's not part of the planning scheme when we made it back in 2017. So this is all new. What we're talking about here is a 5 hectare site adjacent to the Ergon Energy substation where it needs to be. So if we're going to have any chance to transition to net zero emissions, we have to start to look at these proposals. The planning officers have assessed this against the codes and have justified this application be approved. So I'm fully supportive of it.
Speaker against now, Councillor Christensen.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. As you've foreshadowed, there is an alternate motion. I've riddled it with reasons, but there really is only two reasons that are substantial enough to reject it. One is the core purpose of rural zoning, and that refers to the Rural Zones Code's purpose in section 6.2.17.2 of our planning scheme, which prioritises agricultural production and rural landscape preservation. Now, rural zoning is fundamentally incompatible with non-agricultural industrial uses that don't support or aren't dependent upon agricultural activities. In other words, not ancillary to it. Now, we can put all the conditions on it to make it visually appealing or mask it or whatever, but you can't mask the intent of the activity on that land. It is non-agriculture and therefore doesn't fit into the zoning. Any other form of development before us, whether it's contained in the planning scheme or not, if it's not ancillary to the agricultural use, we would be talking right now about a refusal. Now, why then is it come to the table here with an approval? Well, it goes to point two, the overriding need, some sort of community benefit, a public interest test. Now that's very subjective, but one of the things that actually knocks it on the head straight up is the fact that, as we've heard from an objector in the audience here, Mackay Sugar, there are other sites that don't have good quality agricultural land where this project could be placed. That immediately rules out this site. There is no public interest test because there is another place that this development can actually go. Now that's the planning grounds, but I've got to tell you, there's also human grounds here. I mean, I would hate to be a resident of Plaistow having this nearby. It's a close-knit, peaceful area. People have lived there for generations, worked there for generations, on the farms there, and also in rural lifestyle blocks. Now, they are going to be very upset by this if it goes ahead, principally because of the fire hazard. Let's talk about that for a second. In Bouldercombe, last year, a Tesla battery site caught fire and nearby residents were told they had to stay indoors for hours to avoid toxic fumes. Fire crews had no choice but to let it just simply burn out, a process that actually took days. We could go to Victoria, where it took 3 days and 150 firefighters to actually put out a similar battery fire, and again, residents were told to stay indoors because of toxic fumes. There is a hazard from these things, and going near cane farms, which can easily be caught aflame, and homes, which can also be caught aflame, is not a good mix. Finally, I want to say that this eats into good quality agricultural land, it eats into sugarcane country. You lose sugarcane, you lose critical mass. We could see the closure of a mill. It is no wonder that Mackay Sugar's objected, no wonder they're here talking to us. Closure of a mill means hundreds of jobs lost. For what? This facility will hardly employ anyone operationally. And I conclude, it can go somewhere else. It should go somewhere else.
Thanks, Councillor Christensen. Speaker for. Any other speakers? Councillor Bella speaking against.
There are a number of different facets to this. Now, firstly, it was said to us that this is the first of a number that are likely to come up. So we need to get this one right. Secondly, I always query when someone claims they're doing something for the environment and everything like that, and I feel very strongly that we should. But are they doing it for environment, or are they doing it because it's cheaper to do it there? I would suggest that maybe that could be considered as a reason when there are other options. Having inspected the site, firstly I'd like to tell you that I've been a part of creating 2 cane farms. One is, before I was even in the double figures, And the other one, the one we currently I did, the work that goes into that is unbelievable. But you can't do it anymore. Difficult. As you can see, when Wilmar tried to expand down further, the battles they had with environmental groups regarding that. I just wish we would apply the same assessment framework to the different industries competing here. So proximity to feed-in point, which is one of the things they claim, that is essential for cane farming. Mills are where they are because it is the most fertile and easily accessible ground. Simple as that. If we take 5 hectares of good quality close land out, it's got to move a long way out. You can't then, with the costs of today, build a tram line out to that. It falls to road transport, increased cost. That 5 hectares, when you move to marginal land, becomes 20 hectares. So there's an environmental impact as well as the trucks running up and down. But you can't just go and get 20 hectares. First of all, you've got to apply to clear it. Then you've actually got to apply to break the soil nowadays to government. So I suggested, why don't they look at right next door where it's sloped? Yeah, you can table it away, but it's remnant veg. Well, if we're applying remnant veg, farming's got to be assessed the same way. When you move out, there's less water. That's the first thing. That is an irrigated area there. When you move out, and we are on that, you're in marginal soils, very marginal soils. How do you make them produce? By more fertiliser. But once again, you can't, because the government mandates the amount of fertiliser we can use. Now, if you look at the forward pricing of sugar, it's already showing a decline. So, rhetorical question, which areas do you think will move from sugar production to cattle production should cattle prices go up, which they're expected to, and sugar prices go down? And then we get to the critical mass. As with everything, first of all, you pay your bills, then you make a profit. We're currently battling. We're at 59%. We still haven't paid our bills. And if we don't get past, at least 80%, we're going backwards this year. That's our farm. Mills are the same. So all of a sudden, they lose area. They're struggling to survive. Maintenance goes downhill, which means farmers lose interest in the industry or confidence in the industry. So they move out into something else, the mill closes. What happens? Thousands of people out of work. We're already looking down the barrel of the mining industry being wound back over the next few years. What are the core industries we have in this town? And it's all very well to talk about new industries, but I'll tell you here and now, trying to start a new industry to get critical mass is a hell of a lot harder and more expensive than looking after an industry that already exists, has existed for a long time, and basically has fed us, clothed us, and housed us for over 100 years. And I here in this chamber have seen hundreds of hectares of great quality agricultural land go under buildings. And this is what I've said to everyone. If you don't know farming, if you don't know agriculture, not just cane, then your assessment of this is flawed. We've got the state development area, hundreds of hectares. We've got various other things that have gone on. At what point, and I've used this statistic many times, proportionally, and we all think of Afghanistan as a dry, horrible hole. Proportionally, Australia has less arable land than does Afghanistan.
Councillor Bella, you're 5 minutes.
So let's not chop it up, hey? Let's keep it and let's let something that can move, because farming can't.
Thank you, Councillor Bella. Councillor Sheedy speaking against.
Thank you, Your Worship. And look, I'd just like to endorse what Councillor Christensen has said and also Councillor Bella. Good quality agricultural land, the message is there. We've got to essentially stand by the planning scheme that we have without these kind of conflicts. And to me, I think it's fairly clear. It's a case of it's the wrong activity for this land, and I think it's as simple as that. And I won't labour it anymore. I think enough has been said. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thanks very much, Councillor Sheedy. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Jones. Now,
For purpose of debate, that was all it was, Your Worship.
Councillor Jones, I'll allow you to sum up.
I don't
Which
need to
time
sum
you
up, Your
want-
Worship.
Okay, right, thanks very much.
Just put it to the vote.
Okay. So councillors, I'll put the motion, those in favour? Those against? The motion is lost. And the motion is lost 10-1. 10. So we have an alternative motion that's been circulated, and that's the motion that council refused the development application 47 for an MCU and the battery energy storage system on undefined use located at lot 20 at Plaistow School Road, Plaistow, more formally described on that lot number and the specific plan number for a number of reasons. I'm happy that those reasons are entirely supportable, and it gives us, under the Act, then the ability to reject this, as we've done, we rejected this motion of the officer's recommendation. Councillor Christensen, you wish to move?
Yes, I wish to
And
move.
I get a seconder first. Is there a seconder? Okay, Councillor Mackay, Councillor Christensen.
Thank you, Worship. Look, we've said it all, but I just I've, as I said, I riddled it with as many points as possible, obviously, for legal reasons that you need to have a long string of reasons as to why you're departing from an officer's recommendation. But to me, again, this fails on two clear reasons. One, it just is not in line with the rural zone code, with the kind of activities that we have there, and with the overriding thing that we need to preserve the rural, the rural landscape. Now, as I said before, there is one get out of jail card that you can play to override that, and that is public need. And I want to just explain that a bit more. The question then falls to this council: do we feel that this particular development application has such a community need that it would override the intent of the planning scheme for this particular zoning? And I would say to you, no, it doesn't. And again, I would say to you, it doesn't for one key reason: it can go somewhere else. If something can go somewhere else and it doesn't need to eat into good quality agricultural land, then of course it doesn't meet any overriding community need. We've heard today, Councillor Bella has pointed out, there was actually a nearby hill that they could have sited it on. Mackay Sugar has pointed it out that they have sites that it can go on. They might be a competitor, yes, but the fact remains that there's an alternate site for this kind of project. We need to remain blind to the fact that it might be a competitor that owns the other site. So I put to you, for all of the reasons, which includes particularly those 2 points, we need to reject. We need to accept this motion. We've obviously rejected the previous one, but also I talk in this about fire hazards. The fact that there's no reticulated water there, could actually be an issue. Obviously, we know that sugarcane can burn and burn quite quickly, that there are nearby houses, and we know from recent examples that there's toxic smoke that actually emanates when there is a fire. And, look what happened down in Bouldercombe. Similar circumstances, and Rockhampton Council approved something in Bouldercombe, and 6 months later or thereabouts, the thing went aflame. And yet we're told that these are uncommon. Well, that went aflame, the one in Victoria went aflame. There's lots that go aflame. Why do they go aflame? I'd put it to you that there's an issue with it. Nonetheless, that really is a secondary point. The primary point is not in line with the rural zone, and there's no overriding community need to detract from that first point.
Thanks very much, Councillor Christensen. Speaker against? Are there any other speakers?
I'll speak again.
Can we have this debate?
I'd like to have it again.
Okay.
Thank you
Have
very
you
much.
changed your mind, Councillor May?
No, I have not.
Oh,
I'm
right.
speaking
You're
against this
Right,
motion.
okay, very good.
I find it very hard to support this motion, Mr Mayor, when we have experienced planning officers that have put forward the conditions and the approval of the previous motion, And this council's taking it into its own hands to come up with its own reasons as to why we should be supporting this particular motion now. I think that when we talk about the zone, where it's going, it's not suitable in a rural zone. I think I outlined in my previous debate, it is not suitable in any zone. There is no provision in the planning scheme for battery storage areas. So it comes down to a case-by-case assessment, and the officers have put forward a solid case as to why we should be approving it, so I cannot support this motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor May. Speaker 4, Councillor Jones, speaking 4.
Thank you, Worship. So I support this alternate motion, based on the fact that I'm certainly in support of renewables, don't get me wrong, but progress and sustainability have to go together. For me, as a fourth term councillor, I have always protected GQAL, and that is the primary reason today that I will support this motion, because GQAL in our region needs to be protected. Like Councillor Christensen said, there are other sites, but to lose the 44 hectares for many, many years is not something that I can support. So thank you.
Councillor, speaker against. Other speakers, Councillor Bella, speaking 4.
This one's going to be brief, relatively brief, but I'd like to talk about the environment, the energy and the political environment. So the political environment's changed. We've got a new government that's supposedly going to stop the hydro scheme and everything like that. So the energy environment is going to change markedly. So the fear of us going against this, and let's just jump back to a solar farm that I strongly fought against, and we voted down, and then the minister called it in. Well, it didn't go ahead because apparently they ran out of funds, so who was the better judge, us or the minister? In this case, the LNP has always, been more pro-agriculture, and as a farmer for many years, our relationship with the ALP has been absolutely awful. We've been the perpetual whipping boy. One would hope that the environment will change, and that if it were to go to a minister, they would support the concept of maintaining agricultural land, because they ain't making any more. The other thing I'd like to say is that over the years, agriculture has supported power production. Remember that. Agriculture has supported power production. But has power production ever supported agriculture in this regard? No, we're going to chop up the ground and whatever. So all I'm asking for is a little bit of fairness. And if it goes to the minister, I would hope that a new government, a new broom sweeps clean. So let's think about the political and the energy environment. Let's just see how the cards fall.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bella. Are there any other speakers? Give you another vote. Yes, you've got about a minute and a half left, Councillor.
I just have to respond to that. This is not about politics. This is a planning matter. It's not about politics. It's not about whether the ALP is in or the LNP is in. It's purely a planning matter, and it should be assessed. There's a lot of assumptions that are being said around this table with no data, no proof to back that up. They're just assumptions, and this should not be made political.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Sheedy.
Thanks, Your Worship. Look, I think the motion that Councillor Christensen's put up, I commend it, and I think it is comprehensive, and at the end of the day, it is this council that needs to, sort of stand firm on this particular matter. And I think there's definitely good reasoning, very compelling reasoning, that we should stand firm and protect good quality agricultural land in this particular instance. The matter of battery proposals is something that may have its own merits, but I think we've got very compelling reasons in this case to refuse and to go forward with what Councillor Christensen has proposed. Thank you.
Councillor Sheedy. Are there other speakers? Councillor Bella.
I've got about a minute just to reply. The fact that the statement made by Councillor May, there's no data, there is plenty of data. data on the amount of people employed by the sugar industry, data in how much land we need as a critical mass. All of that data is easily available. Plenty of data there. As far as politics go, I was actually alluding to the fact that if we refuse it, then we're to be appealed and go to the minister. We're facing a completely different ballgame. Everything in our lives is politics. So politics does have a bearing on what we do here. What I was talking about is the likelihood of a different outcome to something that we were warned of previously. And I think that if we're not going to take notice of that, we've already heard during the campaign and indeed after the election of the new government that there's going to be changes in regard to power. So I just feel that I had to reply to that. Politics is everything in this case.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers. Healthy debate, councillors. As the Deputy Mayor has outlined, this is the first time we've ever had to deal with anything like this. It's not included in our planning scheme. We've never made a plan for it before, and perhaps in the revisal of our planning scheme, we need to actually address that. I think it's quite clear around the table that there has been a move to not support this and support the inclusion of good quality agricultural land in our thinking for planning in the future. And so I think we know which way this vote's going to go, but I'll put the vote right now. Those in favour? Those against? Okay, the motion is carried. 10-1. Thanks very much. Good debate. 11.4.3. This is a request to consider waiving of infrastructure charges at Kerrisdale Estate, and we do have two speakers to this. First of all, Cassandra Graff. Okay, now you heard the rules of engagement, Cassandra, so 3 minutes, over to you.
Good morning, councillors. I'm here on behalf of the Shuttlewood family who own and develop Kerrisdale Estate. I have proudly watched my father and his siblings evolve from cane farmers to residential developers while maintaining integrity. We are not asking to waive infrastructure charges, no credit or concession. We are asking councillors to consider indexation in a complex case. Yesterday we circulated a response to council's report which hopefully added some context. We constructed Norwood Parade, enabling council to complete the vital link to the northern beaches. A large portion was funded by us. In more recent times, the remaining sections were paid by us, but would be reimbursed as it is work that council would have otherwise undertaken themselves. An offset register recorded the money owed to us for infrastructure that we paid for and delivered to council. To be clear, the offset register relates purely to that. The only reason I'm discussing it now is the ability for us to use the funds council owed us to pay for infrastructure charges if we chose to. The final stage of Norwood, where it meets Reed Street, was constructed as part of our 5B project. When it came time to pay infrastructure charges for 27 lots in 5B, we were disadvantaged because of two main factors. Firstly, council failed to inform us of the maximum increased charges they would be adopting from 1 July 24. Council confirmed that $862,470 was payable on 25 June, but did not indicate that we had 5 days to pay or it would be increased by $89,365. After our meeting with Mayor Greg Williamson in September, council confirmed that the action notice template was being updated to include an advisory note in relation to indexation. That is the exact point we're discussing here. We appreciate council are responsible for many evolving timelines and are pleased to hear they are making deliberate changes. But councillors need to appreciate that in our case, we were unable to make an informed decision. Secondly, our situation was unique because there were two payment options available to us. In an ordinary development situation, a charge amount is confirmed and the only option is payment. We had constructed Norwood Parade under an infrastructure agreement, which meant in our case, we could either pay our charges or offset them against money council already owed us. We knew it would take time to finalise Norwood costs, but believed it would be more efficient for everyone if charges were paid from the offset register. This can be discussed further if requested. Had we known our choices were to pay $862,000 on 25 June or pay an extra $89,000 5 days later, we would have paid the charges in the ordinary way rather than offset them at the end of a lengthy Norwood analysis. This is a situation where a local family-owned developer has cooperated with council on a highly publicised priority project, and through a complex indexation crossover period, we've been unfairly disadvantaged. If we were to receive a charge for a new project in October 24, being after 1 July, it would only be $30,226 per lot, fixed for 12 months. However, we lodged a plan seal application in May for developed lots that were charged at $34,452 each. This means new lots are paying 11% less compared to older lots where the automatic increase provision applies. Higher costs for existing lots compared to new lots is inconsistent with the concept of indexation, and is another reason why our charges have not been calculated appropriately. Council are entitled to increase charges but do not have to. Given our extenuating circumstances which would easily distinguish our case from others, we respectfully ask councillors to use their discretionary power to waive indexation of $89,365 using the 1 July maximum charges, and instead apply indexation of $13,254 using council's automatic increase calculator. Full details.
Ms. Graff, you're almost 4 minutes now, so.
Yeah, sorry, full details are in our response, but we will be paying $875,724 in charges.
And Gary Dolly, is it Tom?
Yeah.
Once again, 3 minutes.
Yeah, pretty much just to reiterate what Cassandra has said there. And the crux of this is that the 25th of June, they received a notice, an action notice, which is a plan sealing process, where it stipulated an amount of $862,000 and something was to be paid. We were actively working through the plan sealing process here, which can take some time sometimes, particularly in a development like this where we're dealing with substantial trunk infrastructure which is being built by the developer to go to the council. And so there's a lot of backwards and forwards with regards to infrastructure agreements, finalising of construction costs and all these sorts of things. So this does take a bit of time to get through and that sort of thing. So in receiving that notice on very late June, they, in good faith, thought, well, this is the value we're dealing with, and this is what is going to go into the mix of finalising the infrastructure agreement. And then and no warning on that notice that only 5 days later, on the 1st of June, that it would increase by 11% is a bit hard to sort of take on board. Their construction costs that they built, for the piece of infrastructure they're delivering for the community good, they weren't unable to increase their costs on that by 11% overnight. So it's out of kilter with regards to how this cost of 11% happened overnight with regards to the offset against the infrastructure costs that they're building. I suppose one of the questions might be too is that if the Shuttlewoods did pay that amount before the end of June, and we got to 6 weeks later on where everything was being finalised and settled with the infrastructure agreement, it would have meant that that money should have been refunded to the Shuttlewoods. We don't know how much would have been refunded to them if, going on the lines of the council's staff wanting to adopt the higher charge, then technically that higher charge should have been refunded to them, not the amount that they paid. So it's really not money that council were going to be receiving in a monetary form. Just an offset against a construction cost, which the developer bore, has no mechanism of claiming for holding costs, the money that he's had to put in to build this thing over the last 2 years. He can't claim any holding costs for the millions of dollars that he's had to borrow to build this. That's not a mechanism in the infrastructure agreement. Can only claim for the construction costs and an indexation of that. So that's a basic summary of it. It gets very messy and convoluted when we start talking about infrastructure charges because, as Cassandra just said, someone got a new development now, it's $30,000. Someone who's got a development and delivers it after 12 months, it's more than that. And this development was approved just only a couple of years ago. It was a multiple stage development. It hasn't been sitting on that development approval. He developed the first stage 5A, immediately, as soon as that was completed, moved on to the very next stage. So it's been an ongoing development the whole time since day one of receiving the approval. It hasn't been a situation of sitting back and land banking.
Thanks, Mr. Nobby. Thank you. Right. Questions? Do you have a question, Councillor?
I do, Your Worship.
You don't need to stand for a question.
Yes, thanks, Your Worship.
You don't need to stand for a question.
Thank you, Your Worship. Question is, I'd like to say that I've been troubled by what I've seen, with our briefings and the additional information that Cassandra has provided. And I'd like to see this lie on the table.
We don't have a motion yet.
That's your wish.
Okay. Are there questions? Councillor Christensen.
Yes, just in light, I mean, it's crystallised now after those explanations, the applicant's correspondence to us. Was, two questions. Was there any indication on the notice given to them that there would be indexation? And I'll let you answer that before we go on to the next question.
On the invoice?
Or on the DA? Or on the notice that they got, which contained the figure?
Yes, through the action notice didn't, as I understand, but the original infrastructure charges notice included our standard wording around indexation, which is standard applied to all development.
Okay, to clarify that, the notice containing the dollar amount did not refer to indexation, is that correct?
Director?
Well, the action notice advised the amount payable as of the 25th of June, but the original infrastructure charges notice which levied the charges included the statement.
The second question is, was the applicant in an infrastructure charges arrangement with council, and did any discussion with the applicant happen about incorporating this cost into that arrangement with council?
Thank you, Worship. As described by the speakers, this is a complex one. The discussions focused on the claim around the trunk infrastructure for Norwood Parade and around other matters. Those were the subject of ongoing discussions under the action notice up to when the survey plan was sealed, at which time the further indexing and the indexing increase was applied.
Did you have another question, Councillor? No. Questions? Councillor Ballard?
I do have a question. It's prompted by Councillor Christensen's question. So let me go over this. The original infrastructure agreement contained advice saying that there was going to be indexation occurring over the period. That is correct?
Indexation is standard.
Yes, exactly. So information, that knowledge was made known. The latest invoice didn't include it. Is there any responsibility on council to include that information on that latest invoice?
CEO, Director?
Thank you, Worship. There's nothing in the Planning Act that requires that information
Thank
to be
you.
included in action notice.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Christensen?
Just one more that comes to mind. In the original notice that contained the information about the indexation, I gather that there was no dollar figure that was listed in that. Did the applicant only become aware of how much they had to pay on the 25th of June through that notice, the second notice?
Thank you, Worship. No, there's the charge, the original charge was levied, but as that was some time ago, it's quite common then for a development to take some time till it's delivered. So then when there's discussions around the survey plan, an updated figure is provided that includes indexation to that point. But there is a levy charge that included in the infrastructure charges notice. It's then subject to indexation. It's the value of the indexation that's in dispute.
It's not the levy.
Excuse me.
No, you can't speak, thank you. Are there further questions? So the recommendation here is that council refuse the request to waive the indexation of $89,365.10 applied to the adopted applied to the adopted infrastructure charges associated with DA number 137A. So we'd like to move. Councillor May moves. Second. Councillor Jones. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. As been outlined, it is a complex matter, but I have to go back to the original notice that the infrastructure charges that was levied back in 2021, and it does state the amount of money in that charge. It also states in that advice that there will be indexation on an annual basis. The first 12 months it is what it is. Any time after 12 months, it is subject to indexation. We have to be very careful here of setting a precedent, because there are many cases like this where infrastructure charges need to be reconciled and agreed upon. So if we give some concession here, we are opening the Pandora's box for many other applicants to come forward and want the same treatment. So I think it's very clear. If it hadn't have been on the original infrastructure charges notice, I would say, yep, fair enough. But it was on that, it is stated in that. We have an experienced developer that has done many stages of this development. I think it should be pretty clear that they were due an owing.
Speaker against? You're speaking against, Councillor Sheedy?
Your Worship, could I just foreshadow that I'd like to see this lie on the table?
You can move a procedural motion to lie on the table. You can't foreshadow it.
All right, well, I'll move the procedural motion that it lie on the table. I mean,
procedural motion that it lies on the table
until the next meeting, and hopefully in the meantime we can get some clarification. It was obvious that Mr. Davey had.
Thanks, Councillor Sheedy. Procedural motion is that it lie on the table pending further information to council. Those in favour? All right, those against? It's a tied vote, so I'll have the casting vote. The procedural motion is lost. Okay, so let's continue with this debate. We're up to speaker 4. Is there a speaker 4? Are there any other speakers? Speaker 4, Councillor Miller.
All I'd like to say is that I will then foreshadow that at the next meeting I'll bring forward a motion, or ask the Mayor and CEO to form a motion with regard to delegation in matters of these nature, or this sort of nature. But failing that, I'll bring it as a notified motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Jones, you're speaking 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to say that I'm in full agreement with what Councillor May has previously stated. Quite often, you know, across this table we come across matters that are very difficult. This is a very difficult one. Some of them concerning ratepayers who, you know, are getting, you know, charged by our debt collectors and didn't know that it was going to the debt collection agency. And at the end of the day, there's certainly an onus on a ratepayer or an applicant to be informed, and this is just a difficult one to deal with, but I'm in favour of the refusal, Your Worship. So.
Thank you. Speaker against? Councillor Sheedy.
Your Worship, I think Mackay needs to step up when it comes to encouraging development. We've got people here who've certainly done their bit and obviously cooperated with the council, but I think we need to be seen to be supporting in a positive way, you know, resolution of issues that can encourage development, and I think that what we're doing here is really sending the wrong message to our development community. So I think to me it's a clear one. I'd like to see some middle ground, but that's not what the motion is. And I'd have hoped that had the procedural motion got up, that we could have done something like that. Anyway, I'm against the motion, and my reasons are clear.
Speaker 4. Are there any other speakers?
Yes.
Councillor Christensen.
I mean, I'm very torn on this, and my inclination prior to the meeting was to vote for this resolution. I would have dearly liked to have had more time to thrash out some of the issues that have been raised by the submitters here today. My concern is 2 things. One, if this does open a floodgate for other claims, because we have to be very careful with precedents. But the question is, does the criteria around this, the factors that are around this case, do they give any precedent to other claims. I don't know. And because I don't know, I don't have enough information to really vote on this. The second thing is, what I heard from the submitters was that if they had been aware, for whatever reason they weren't, that after 1st of July it was going to go up, and therefore they would have had to pay more, then they would have decided to pay it before the date, right? That's what they've told us, rather than looking at it as part of the trunk infrastructure costs arrangement with council. What's been said was that actually if they'd done that, when the trunk infrastructure costs arrangement was actually dealt with by council, council may have had to pay them back the bigger figure because it was after the date of the indexation. Now, I don't know whether that claim is correct or not. And again, because I don't know that, I'm uncertain about voting on this at all. And because I can't abstain, my only vote can then be against the motion. I don't necessarily want to cast that vote because I just don't know the full facts on this matter. And if indeed that this case opened the floodgates for a whole heap of other people to come back and say, hey, we had the same issue, we're in a payment arrangement, we're not paying anymore, then I would say, okay, look, we can't do this. But I simply don't know, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, are there any other speakers? Do you wish to sum up, Councillor?
Thank you very much.
Oh, hang on, Councillor Mackay, you're speaking.
I'm actually just supporting what George is, because I'm actually really conflicted, and so I'm in this.
So are you speaking for or against? You're speaking
Against.
Okay, you need to speak.
Yeah, so reiterating what Councillor Christian has said, I'm the same. Based on new information, now conflicted. So because I don't have all the information, I would have to vote against.
Councillor Bella, did you speak again?
Yeah, but I haven't spoken on this.
I haven't spoken. Right, okay.
I spoke about foreshadowing. Yeah.
Okay,
I just, maybe I can offer some clarity to Councillor Christensen and Councillor Mackay. The parties involved, both the developer and the planner, were informed a couple of years ago that any costs would be subject to indexation. That is incontestable. Indexation occurs every year. That is incontestable. Indexation is something that just happens. So I really don't see how anyone can be conflicted in this particular situation. Should have known, were informed, council did what council was required to do. Indexation occurred on the 1st of July, as it does every year for every developer. Every developer.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. I'll give you a chance to sum up. Before I do, I'm really conflicted myself about the information some councillors don't think that they have following a briefing that we had just yesterday. So it's quite concerning that you either didn't understand the briefing yesterday or now, for some reason or other, you're changing your mind about the information. But I'll let you sum up now.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just draw people's attention to, and this was circulated to all councillors, this is the infrastructure charges notice that was issued on the 8th of December 2021, and clearly states in here adjustments to the levy charge. The amount of levy charged is fixed for 12 months from the date of the infrastructure charges. After 12 months, the amount of the levy charge is subject to automatic increases in accordance with Section 6 of the Council's adopted Charges Resolution December 2020. The automatic increase is worked out using PPI, which is the Roads and Bridge Construction Index of Queensland, and it's adjusted to the 3-yearly PPE moving average quarterly percent change for the period. So there's no debate here. There is no debate here. It is clearly stated, it was given to the applicant, and that there has been negotiations with council around the timing of things and the supplying of information. so that the matter could be settled and sorted prior to 30 June, and that did not occur. I think in our information, the final value of the trunk's worth was decided on the 11th of September. It clearly, there is no case for matters to be able to give that money to the developer, to waive those fees. And I think if we're talking about working with developers, this council has for a number of years now, I think since 2014, 2015, has a facilitating development policy which covers a broad range of concessions that we've been able to give and work with developers to be able to make sure that we're competitive, to make sure that development occurs in our area. So I fully support the motion.
Thank you. So the motion is that,
It's something
no,
very.
wait, you will leave the chamber if you dare to interrupt again. Thank you. The council refused the request to waive indexation of $89,365.10 applied to the adopted infrastructure charges on DA number 137-A. Those, I'm putting the motion, those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. With, did you vote, councillor? You voted against? Okay, you got the 3 against. All right, motion's carried. All right, thanks, councillors. 11.4.4, facilitating development in the Mackay Region Sole Family Trust, which is the Mount Dukes Family Farm. The material change of use for food and drink outlet and industry brewery at 1000 Cullable Mount Dukes Road. Are there questions? No questions. Anything further we need to add on this, Drake?
No, I think it's all pretty self-explanatory, and we did have a briefing as well. It's a request under the policy. It does foreshadow further consideration of the policy as part of the upcoming review in relation to breweries. And overall, the request for waiver of charges is recommended for support.
Somebody like to move? Councillor Jones moves, Councillor Christensen seconds. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. Look, the Mount Dukes Family Farm, I'm really looking forward to this see it come to fruition. It's another local product, not only provides service to our local community, but also the visitors to our region, and I'm really looking forward to it just coming to fruition.
Speaker against. Any other speakers? Councillor Christensen?
Yes, this is great enterprise, great application. It's in the rural zone, but it is ancillary to the agricultural use of the lot because it's promoting agri-tourism and obviously a lot of use of on-farm products to supply people with great food out there at the Mount Dukes Family Farm. So I haven't gone out there to sample any of their fare yet, Your Worship, but very keen about this brewery. I'll have to go on non-council business to try that out.
Very good. Okay, are there other speakers? Councillor Sheedy speaking.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Look, I'm pleased to support this. I had the occasion to be in Perth recently and in the Upper Swan Valley, and this is the kind of thing that has happened there, and it really boosts that area. You know, it's living proof of what can be achieved when you have developments of this nature. So I'm pleased to support it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers? Councillor Mackay speaking for? Yes. Speaking for the brewery or?
Definitely not the brewery. I actually haven't had the privilege of tasting the food, but I have visited with the intent to, but there was an hour and a half wait. So it shows how popular this is for our community. So I was on a time limit that afternoon, but I look forward to, again, supporting something like this for our agri-tourism.
Fantastic. Thanks, Councillor Mackay. Any other speakers? Okay, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. The Finch-Hatton Flood Study. Finch-Hatton Flood Study is, we've had a briefing on this, of course. Are there questions around this flood study? No questions? Anything further to add, Director?
No, thank you, Worship. There was a briefing, as you said, and I think the report's fairly comprehensive.
It is a comprehensive report. And it's good to see that this flood study finally come to this table. So, would somebody like to move? Councillor Christensen moves, seconded by Councillor Jones. Councillor Christensen.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I'm happy to move this flood study. Of course, this is a study that has been undertaken by experts in this field. We need to receive it. It's legally binding on us too. But one of the things that I'm very pleased that's come out of this is obviously it now shows the Finchhatton community what the risks are. And Council's approach to this, as I understand it, is not going to be simply if the flood levels are this, you can't do anything. If the flood levels are that, you can do this. It will be a risk-based approach. So therefore, we can enter into discussions with different community members that might want to come to us with development ideas about what could potentially go on a site and what could mitigate against flood risks. So that's a great attitude I think that Council should have with this, because we can't change the fact that it floods. We can't change the level that it goes to. We've got the best information that we have here, but what we can do is work with potential developers to ensure that developments can go ahead in a way that is mitigated against any major risks associated with flooding. So very happy to support this risk study being adopted on that approach.
Thanks very much, Councillor Christensen. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Jones speaking for?
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, the town of Finchhatton experienced major flooding in the past. You know, we've got evidence there of the 1958 flood and 2013 flood study prepared for Finchhatton by the QRA identified severe flooding in Finchhatton, and it had limited calibration to those historical events. We've done some great community consultation on this project. We've raised the standard in consultation, and I hope moving forward we can continue the higher standard of consultation. The need for this updated flood study for Finchhatton was identified through our council's local area planning for the Pioneer Valley Mountain Bike Trail. And council has obviously commissioned this new flood study in 2023. As the Queensland Government had identified in 2013 that there was insufficient effective flood risk management and planning and development controls in place. So as an interim, we obviously spoke to the community on a number of occasions. We put in place a temporary local planning instrument, what was introduced until the new flood study could be prepared. So the recommendation is to continue with undertaking that community engagement, that the study assists us to move forward, and that we update the planning scheme, and also that the Insurance Council of Australia use this as a tool that we're providing. So it'll be in place on our website for everybody to see now that the mapping has been finalised, and I'm in full support of receiving the report.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jones. Any other speakers? Speaking for Councillor Sheedy.
Yeah, Your Worship, I was just going to say I've been involved in an earlier life with flood modelling, and you know, they're always as good as the assumptions, but still it gives a sense of what's possible under those various scenarios, and I see the up to 1 in 500 is mentioned there on page 283, but I guess it does add to knowledge about potential events. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Sheedy. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put that motion then. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.5, Infrastructure and Operations. 11.5.1, the response to a petition for improved Serena Aquatic Centre. So this petition has come back to, the response has come back to Council now, and the recommendation for the principal petitioner be advised of the outcomes. Council develops a new set of project objectives and a scope for a feasibility and community assessment study into the region's aquatics facilities to be done. An overview of the feasibility study and scope and proposed community consultation plan then presented to Council in February, and the project delivered in financial year 25, subject to budget approval of course, and Council investigates further the ability to improve accessibility and undertake maintenance based on the current lease arrangements. Any questions? I think it's a pretty good outcome for the officers to come back to us. Moved by councillor May, seconded by councillor Cole. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. This is good to see the inclusion of the feasibility and also the commitment to have a look at improving maintenance and access in the current lease arrangements. I think once we get the final report back in February, we will have some direction and as to a way forward with the aquatic facilities in Serena.
Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Christensen speaking forward.
Yes, in doing so, just ask that we write to the new government to seek the $30,000 that we can put into this project that we're currently undertaking.
Thank you. I think it was promised, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Okay, well, we'll follow that up with a letter. Thank you very much. Any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put that motion. Then those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. So the next one is a response to a petition for the sealing of the road surface of Stotts Road at the racecourse. The recommendation from the officers is that at this time, council doesn't support the sealing of Stotts Road as the standard is appropriate for the rural road environment in that locality and the current demands on that road. And two, that council will continue to maintain Stotts Road as an unsealed road in accordance with the adopted maintenance intervention standards. Questions? No questions? You have a question, councillor?
There was a question of whether, and I think Matthew was going to check with TMR about whether there was any kind of promise given to those people in Stotts Road about, you know, stemming from the ring road.
Promise by?
TMR. Remember, he was almost certain, but he was going to check.
I think it might have been a discussion around whether TMR had said that they were going to do anything with the road. I think at the time the answer was fairly certain of no, but I'm not sure if that answer's been officially responded by to.
Doesn't really affect, it doesn't affect this outcome at all.
No.
Councillor Christensen, you have a question?
Just to clarify and also ask that too, what Councillor Sheedy's saying is that the residents had potentially, or had advised us that TMR had told them that the road would be upgraded. I'm not sure exactly what they told them, but their view was upgraded to bitumen. And so I think that that's the question that's being asked. Have we gone to TMR to ask them what indeed did they commit to the residents in line with the Mackay Ring Road project?
I'll double check on that information. I think in terms of the outcome from council's position in this petition, that it's a separate matter.
It doesn't have any bearing if they've said yes or no, or the residents thought they heard. What's before us is what council will do. And this is the recommendation in terms of the road. You have another question?
Yeah, just is there any movement towards creating a policy for road sealing?
We do have one.
We've got our operational policy and intervention standards.
No, I mean a policy that when we get requests for road sealing, whether certain roads we would consider it or
So
not.
define the criteria.
Yes, exactly.
We'll work on that and bring something back to council.
Okay. Further questions? No further questions? Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Ballard moves, seconded by Councillor Payne. Councillor Ballard.
This is short and sharp. As previously said, any commitments made by TMR and TMR alone. The other thing is that Stotts Road is, in my memory, category 3. There are any number of other roads that are in that category and categories above. So if we seal this one, we seal a lot. And this one doesn't warrant sealing. So not in, as far as use goes or anything like that. So we will look after what we look after. As far as we're concerned under our policies and that, I think that the officer's recommendation is on the ball.
Thanks, Councillor Ballard. Speaker against? Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. And in response to the petition of the off-leash dog park at Slade Point, and the officer's recommendation is that council develop a community consultation plan to determine the future off-leash dog park. Brief council in November, and the consultation plan then be developed prior to the creation of the off-leash dog park at Slate Point. Are there questions? Councillor Jones, you've got a question?
Your Worship, I thought that the original motion, so we're bringing it back off the table, it was laid on the table, so I thought that the original motion that was before us, with addition to the clarity around consultation happening through the local law process, I thought that's what the actual motion would be.
No, I think that it was laid on the table because there's no community consultation. So this one actually says now we'll go and consult with the community, we'll develop a plan with the community and bring it back to council.
Because I think the original motion said, Your Worship, about that the recommendation to fund it, you know, down the track, and that motion there doesn't say that, that's all.
I think to bring this back off the table, we need to get the direction, we need to get the direction to actually start commencing the consultation. That was clear that was not clear in the first response, hence why this is very overt to say this is what we're going to do. Following the brief, we'll then have a separate recommendation that will come on the back of this as well.
All right, no worries.
Okay. Further questions? Assembly ought to move. Councillor Jones moves, Councillor May seconds, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. So for too many years to mention, I've received numerous calls about safe places to exercise dogs in Slate Point. Slate Point has certainly had a reputation over the years of having a large dog population, so it's pleasing to see that we are going to go through this process. The closest dog off-leash park is John Breed Park, and so any of the park areas that have been discussed or investigated in the report that we have before us are worthy, but the Swift Street obviously is one that I feel has got a great deal of merit. You know, it's not near housing. The traffic and dust concerns I don't think are that have been previously spoke about are you know, warranted. Those comments are really based around the fact that we actually have our staff going down there for the emergency stockpiles. And in an emergency, yes, they need to be there, but they're not there day in, day out. So I'm really pleased to see this come back off the table, and that you know, we're going to engage with our community to be able to undertake the local law, and I'm in favour of the officer's recommendation to continue down this path. It all takes time, and we're certainly, through the engagement, you know, we'll get that feedback that we need and we'll move forward.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put that motion then. Those in favour? Any against? Councillor Sheedy, did you vote?
Yeah, I was a bit slow.
In favour. So you vote in favour. Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.6.1, the budget review and strategic financial report. We've had a briefing on this, of course. Are there any questions on this? Any questions on this? You have a question, Councillor Johnson?
So I just wanted to note that there's a reduction in the capital works program budget of 3.881 million. So my question is, so based on the current information, do we anticipate that this trend will continue for future budget reviews in the capital works program?
So yeah.
The idea of the budget review is to take into account the current trend, and that's what the trend shows us to date, is that 3.8 million reduction.
Yeah, so sorry, my question was around, do you see it decreasing further in the budget reviews?
Otherwise that would be captured in this budget review. So anything we know, anything that's known at this point is captured in a budget review. That's what the budget review does, is looks in and says, do we have any issues with all of those future projects, and what does it need to look like, and what needs to be deferred, etc. So we capture that at every budget review. So at this point in time, that's the only concern we have, is what's been moved out for the reasons we discussed in the briefing.
So there's no trend. There's no trend that's developed yet that they're saying.
I think that the risk is, Mayor, that you know, as we've always in capital, we rely on so many different factors of weather and contractors and availability, and so we monitor those month by month to make sure that, you know, what we're hoping to achieve, we can achieve. So a lot of it comes into more deliverability rather than affordability. So we'll continue to work with the contractors to make sure that we're where we need to be, but again, unforeseen circumstances pop up from time to time. as I mentioned in the briefing, the capital plan itself, whilst at 128, covers at least 10 million in contingency, which is $12.8 million worth. So already from 128, you look down, that one's about 116 is what the practical element of the delivery looks like. And even then, that assumes 100%. So.
There's a good question around developing a trend, but I don't see how you can look at the capital works at this early stage and say there's a trend. You know, if concrete was going up or bitumen was going up, we could probably establish that. But I think what the CEO has said at this stage, I mean, I can't see a trend.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Councillor Christensen.
I note on page 380 of our agenda, the table there that talks about expenses, and it's notes that almost the employee costs that we're saving are basically eaten up by contractor costs, but the consultant costs is I have a question around, because that's in addition to what we do anyway. I did notice that part of those consultant costs are consultancies for internal arrangements, and I'm just wondering if the CEO could break down what those consultant costs are for.
I can break that down, but probably not off the top of my head. What I would point out is, as per the briefing, that the cost, the offset and swing between materials and services and including of contractors is still a net zero outcome for us, so we're still on track to where we want it to be. And of course, when we have vacancies, be that internally or indeed not being able to get contractors to conduct work, we may then rely on consultants to get that work done to ensure we can maintain service delivery. But I can get an overview of where the what areas from a program level the consultancy sits in.
Okay, Councillor.
Yes, thank you.
Further questions? No further questions? For the budget review and strategic financial report for September 2024, would somebody like to move its adoption? Councillor Bella moves. Seconded by Councillor Payne. Councillor Bella.
No, I have nothing to say.
Are there any speakers to this? No speakers. I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, there's no petitions to receive today. There's no tenders, no notified motions to consider. We've exhausted our.
Worship, sir. Not that there's, with indulgence, not that there's any petition, but I did notice in the matters arising from the previous minutes that there was a petition that was being set aside simply because the principal submitter had changed her mind on the issue. Is that, well, actually not that she changed her mind, but that she didn't use halls or something like that. I'm just wondering whether that's appropriate or whether we should have had that
decision come to. It's news to me. I didn't say that. So, Councillor Jones, could you
I just
something
wanted,
to add?
yeah, I do, on this matter, and thank you for raising it, Councillor Christensen. We had, I think, made the decision that because this user was not going to be using the hall, we wouldn't go ahead with it all. But at last night's meeting, I had 2 people contact me saying they use the hall and they would like to work with council around the air conditioning and possibly solar for that facility. And I said, well, you just need to send me an email. And I see this morning there's an email there. So I'm not sure where we go with this now that Councillor Christensen has just reminded me of it.
Well, I only raised it under the petitions headings. We just talked about it then, Your Worship. So
it's not on the agenda. I can't deal with it, but it's.
It was in the business.
It's in the business. That's from the last one.
Yeah.
So, but it hasn't come back to the table.
We can bring that back specifically. I think procedurally, from a petition perspective,
we need to proceed.
As it was the head petitioner that was leading the petition, that said that essentially they'd withdrawn the petition because they had no further.
So they have withdrawn. That's in the business arising. Is that right? Is that what you're telling me?
Can I speak, Your Worship?
Yes, you can.
So, going back to the matters arising, the petition be received and referred to the Chief Executive Officer to report and prepare it for Council's consideration. And the response from the officers is the head petitioner had been contacted and no longer uses the hall as such, and the intent of the petition is no longer relevant or needed, so can be closed out. Considering the installation of air conditioning in community halls, including Slate Point, will be further considered as part of the feasibility and community assessment study into the region's community hall facilities. So I think we can pick it up in the assessment that we're going to undertake.
That's when it'll come back, if it comes back.
Well, it's part of the, I think we had a brief broadly around community halls rationalisation as opposed to an individual rule.
So it's not on the agenda as a petition. That's the explanation in there.
And everybody will be getting the email of what's being sent to me, so that's okay.
All right. There's no late business notified. We have 4 confidential reports to consider. Does anybody need to move into closed business to consider those reports? No? Okay, well, let's move through them now. 17.1, approved sponsorship under the Invest Mackay Events and Conference Attraction Program for September. Somebody like to move? Moved by Councillor May, seconded by Councillor Gray. Those in favour? Any against? Motion carried unanimously. 17.2, the Economic Development and Growth Strategic Advisory Committee Subcommittee draft minutes of the 3rd of October. Somebody like to move? Councillor McRae moved, seconded by Councillor Corriwer. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. 17.3, approved concessions under facilitating development of the Mackay Region Policy for September 24. Somebody like to move? Councillor May moved, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. And 17.4, Cricket Australia's hosting agreement partnership. Somebody like to move? Councillor McRae moves. Councillor Payne seconds. Those in favour? Any against? Councillor Bella is moving his objection. Against? 1 against. The motion's carried. Thank you very much, councillors. Long and fruitful meeting today. Thank you for your debate. I declare the meeting closed. Thanks CEO, thanks directors.
I need to do some